Hello again, you future web devs. Are you stuck? You need some guidance? Yeah, this one is a pretty lengthy one here. Build a nutrition label. Looks like it's having us go through about 68 steps, and that's what we're going to be going through in a several part video series here. And if this is your first time visiting this channel, my name is Rob. I'm a coding instructor for freeCodeCamp, and we are going through freeCodeCamp's full stack development program and giving you guidance and instructions from an instructional point of view. So if that's something that you are interested in, then this video is for you. So if you are stuck on a certain area, you can skip right to that section. However, you may miss some good parts in between, so you might want to watch the full video. Please, if you could do us a favor, make sure that you like this video, and if you want to continue watching some of the series and the new videos we put out, make sure you subscribe as well. All right, let's go ahead and dive into what we're going to be doing here. So this is what we're going to be creating here. We have the nutrition facts. Looks like we have maybe some headers, some paragraph tags, and I don't know if these are horizontal rules or if they're divs that could be with the border putting on the bottom, for example, and the size to give us this kind of line effect. So we'll have to see on how they're designing it. It does look like a nutrition label, and I'm assuming going through these steps, it will look exactly like this. So let's go ahead and start coding here. So step number one, it says if you've been provided some basic HTML boilerplate, which it is true. You have some boilerplate code here. And the very first thing that we need to do is it says create an H1 element inside of the body. So let's do that. I'm always teaching everybody, let's do opening and closing tags on here. And that way we never forget. I've seen it so many times from students and even the freeCodeCamp forums where a mistake was added because they forgot to put the closing tags on there. So anyways, it says create an H1 element. Let's go ahead and do that. And it says it wants nutrition facts in there. So let's go ahead and put that in there. All right. Now that that is in there, let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. We're moving on to the next step. Step number 2 says below the H1, go ahead and add a P element and have it say 8 servings per container. All right. Paragraph tag coming up. Again, opening and closing tags so we don't forget. And then the 8 servings per container goes inside the tags. All right. I think that's it. Let's go and check our code. Congratulations. Moving on to the next. Step number 3 says add another paragraph element and have it say the serving size 2/3 cup, which is 55 grams. On some of these, I am going to go ahead and copy and paste what they have on there. And that's just so I can pass the test. And it does save me some time of typing. So let me do that. All right, perfect. Let's check the code. Congratulations. Let's move to the next step. So in step number 4 here of freeCodeCamp's build a nutrition label, it looks like we are not only adding our style sheet on here, so we don't want to forget that part, but we're also importing something from Google, which is a Google font. Many times I'm always telling my students, hey, when you're designing a web page or taking a look at a web page, if you want to use a Google font, it's really easy. They give you the embed code that you need. It's almost like you're going to the grocery store and you're adding some fonts to your cart. And in this case here, Open Sans is what they were wanting us to apply. And really, you could, on your own, you can say, hey, I want to get this font. And then you can come over here for the embed code, and they give you the web version, and where you can utilize links, right? Or they give you the import statements that you can use for CSS. So they give you multiple ways to easily put some of these fonts that are on Google into your code base, so that way your codes look a little more elegant compared to the standard fonts that everybody has on their page. And it's also my understanding as well when we're utilizing Google fonts that if you have visited a page before, it's very easy for the page to recognize, oh, you've already used Open Sans before. It may not have to download it as well. So anyways, the thing that they are wanting us to do here is add our own link here, have the relationship here, attribute, set the style sheet, and then the href, it needs to point to this URL here. So let's go ahead and add these. We're going to put them in the head section, and this is what it is going to look like here. So we'll just do the link. We'll set the relationship equal to the style sheet. The href, we're going to set that equal to what we have up here. So I'm not going to type this out. I'm just going to copy it and paste it. Now I don't need the period or the extra return carriages, so I can get rid of it. And that's all I need for the first one. The next link that it says that we need to put on here is linking to our styles.css. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, I did update the style sheet. I think I misspelled the top one, and the top and bottom both seem to be complete now. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next step. So step number 5, it says we want to create a body selector. And remember, body selectors, they don't get to have the period. There's no hashtags. It's just, we just type in body, and then anything inside here will work, hopefully, right? So we're going to do font family, and then we're going to do open sans with a fallback of sans serif. So we'll do font family, and then in here, we'll just do the open sans, and then we're going to do sans serif. Okay. Remember, the comma separating here is going to say, hey, we're going to try the open sans. If that does not work, then we're going to go with a sans serif. And that's what that is talking about. Let's go ahead and check our code. Here we go. We're moving on to the next section. So step number 6 in building a nutritional label with freeCodeCamp, it tells us that the font size is a bit small. Go ahead and utilize the HTML selector and make the font size 16 pixels. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's do the HTML, open up the curly brackets, and then inside there, we're going to choose the property of font size, and then we're just going to do 16 pixels like so. Let's go and check our code. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next step. Step number 7, this is where we are going to wrap our H1, our paragraph tags, all in a div element called label. And what this means here is I'm going to highlight everything here. I'm going to get rid of it. So I did a Control X or a Command X on the keyboard. And next I want to put a div here, and I want to give it a class, and I want to set that equal to label. And then I'm going to close off the div. So I'm going to go ahead and paste what's on my clipboard in between there. Now, obviously, if I was doing this for my own coding purposes, I would make sure that I am tabbing these over so that way it looks pretty. However, what I've noticed with freeCodeCamp is it doesn't matter how you format things. It will just check the code to see if you have it done properly, and it's going to format it for you on the next step. So let's go ahead and check our code to make sure that we got everything done that we needed to. And there we go. We're moving on to the next section. All right, so we're on step number 8 here. And just a real quick, I know I talked about indenting and tabbing things over earlier. You can see that we're on this new step, and it has already made things nice and pretty here for us. So if we spend some time on it, as far as getting it right on our page here, it totally gets wiped out and removed in the next step. So you don't want to waste your time solely on tabbing and making sure things are indented on here, because it's just going to get wiped out and changed in the next step. So anyways, that's just a freeCodeCamp tip here for you. So back on the styles, it says here we need to add borders on our group of labels. And the way that we're going to do it for this step anyway, we're just going to target the label class. So that's period label. And then we're going to open up the curly brackets, and then we want to set that border to 2 pixels, solid, and then black. All right. And then we should see a border just like what we see right here. Obviously ugly right now, but we just have to go with each step here at a time. All right. Looks like we're moving on to the next step. Step number 9, it says a good use of white space can bring focus on the important elements of your page and guide your user's eyes throughout the text. So for this, we're going to still be inside our label selector. We want to set the width to 270 pixels. So width, 270 pixels, and there we go. It looks a lot shorter. Let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. Let's move on to step number 10. Step number 10 has us apply a margin here, and we want to set that margin property to 20 pixels and then auto, and then the padding property of 0 pixels and then 7 pixels. Okay. And again, this is just going to be a reminder here. I know we talked about this before with the CSS box model that we were talking about. And whenever we are referencing either margins or padding, we can get a real simplistic property of margins and apply values to them that would apply to any of the 4 corners or the 4 sides. And if we had 4 values, it would look something like this, where and it starts like a clock, right? And if we're working our way around the clock, starting at the top, it would be top and then right and then bottom and then the left. Okay. Now, when we are just dealing with 2 numbers, this is where we are focusing on the top and bottom, and we also can put a comma in here for the separation. And the second value here is going to be left and right. Okay, so that's just something to think about when we're seeing these values. And sometimes you will see 3 values, and that means, hey, the first one is going to be the top, the next value is going to be left and right, and then maybe you wanted a different bottom value. And so that's when you would see 3 values when it comes to either margin or padding. So in your head, in your mind, when you're looking at a margin, you should be thinking, okay, so 20 pixels, it's just giving me 2 values here, and then the auto, okay? And that's going to center our label right there on the page. So we're going to do the auto and then the semicolon. And so now you can see that this is, it shifted that entire element block of the label and put it right there on the page here for us. So that's what the auto did. And then as far as the padding, we can get away with the 2 values that it gave us. Again, think in your mind, what's going to go on? I'm putting 0 padding on the top and bottom. Next is 7 pixels on the left and right. And that's what that one does. Okay. So let's make sure we got everything here. And that looks perfect, except I have a comma here that I don't need. Okay, let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next section here. All right, so step number 11 might be a little unique one for us because I don't think they've told us to take a look at the browser tools quite yet. And it says if you inspect the label element with your browser developer tools, you'll notice that the calculated width of this is 288 pixels instead of the 270. And so I did want to show you how to go about this. And I'm in Google Chrome right now, and whatever browser you're in will most likely be different. But you can either right click something over here. So I'll come over here to our panel over here with the nutrition facts, and I'll right click and inspect. Okay. Now the keyboard shortcut, and you might want to commit this to memory, usually in Google Chrome, doesn't matter Mac or Windows, is going to be your F12 button, and that should bring it up as well. Mac users or laptop users, you may have to hold the function key down in order to get to your F12 for it to function properly. But you're going to see a bunch of weird stuff on here, and where I'm going to just do a brief walkthrough on, hey, how do I see this calculated width here of 288 instead of 270? So we have this little arrow up here at the very top, and it's like a targeting mode type of thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on it, and you're going to notice that I get this weird selector. And what I'm specifically looking for is grabbing the label or letting it highlight on the label, because I have this little window that we see here for it. And I believe if I click on it, I'm going to lose this little window here. But you can see on here, it says 288. Okay. So this is taking into consideration any borders that we've added, any defined width that we had on here, any padding. Right, all those values get added up, and by default, the browser goes with the content box model. And what step 11 is having us do is, hey, let's go to the border box model instead. And so that's what it's going to do. So we're going to check this out. I'm going to close out of the dev tools, and it wants us to use the global selector here. So that's the asterisk, and this will be applied to every single element on the page. And so it wants our box sizing. We want to change that to border box. Okay. And so now when we go into our dev tools, again, I'm going to use my F12 here, and it popped open this. I can use my targeting over here, and I'm over on the label. And now notice that it's showing 270, which is the width that we defined in our CSS. Okay. If you're not understanding border box or content box model, I would definitely take a look at the W3 schools and just do a search, Google search for box sizing, border box, and W3 schools. And if you're needing a little more personalized information, I would definitely take a look at ChatGPT and say, hey, can you explain the box sizing and border box to me? And it will spit out a bunch of information that you can read. And again, if you need it to be brought down to even a further level, you can have ChatGPT do that as well, saying, hey, can you use analogies? And it will definitely help you out. Okay. Let's go ahead and I'm going to get out of the developer tools here. I hit the escape button on it. And then we can go ahead and check our code. And there we go. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next part here. DevTools, very important to learn. I'm sure you'll learn it throughout the course here maybe, but that's something definitely we teach our students that come through the course is learn how to use the DevTools. They're so helpful to not only take a look at the console, use those targeting selectors, and you can even play with the CSS live on the page as well. So anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. All right, so step number 12, it says, remember that the use of H1 and H2 similar tags determine the semantic structure in your HTML. However, you can adjust the CSS of these elements to control the visual flow of hierarchy. So let's go ahead and create a new H1 selector. So on line 20 here, I'm going to do H1 selector. And it wants the font weight to be 800. So that way it will look a little bolder. So in here, we'll do font weight, and we're going to set this to 800. There we go. We saw the nutrition facts get a little bolder on here. Let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next step. So step number 13, it says, let's go ahead and align our text to the center. And so I don't know if we'll see that much on here. We may see it shift just a little bit, but we'll see. So we'll do text align, and we want to change that to center. Okay, checking our code. There we go. Moving on to the next step. All right, step number 14 says, let's fine tune that placement of the H1 by giving the top and bottom margin -4 pixels while the left and right get a 0 margin. And so that's where we can use that shortcut that we were talking about earlier. We're going to do margin. Okay, we can solve this entire thing with just one property, and we put a space in between what we want. And so they gave us the same values for top and bottom. That's going to be -4 pixels. Next is going to be the right and left, and they want that to be 0. And then we are done with this. Let's go ahead and check our work. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next step. Okay, we're on step number 15 here, and it says create a P selector. So let's go ahead and do that. And remember, we don't need any kind of periods on here. It's just going to be a P and then the curly brackets. Next, it says remove all the margins. Well, that means 0. Notice that we don't have to put pixels on any of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do margin. And we want 0 on here. So no pixels, no M's or rems or anything like that. It's just a big fat 0. Let's check our work. And congratulations, we're moving on to the next step. All right, step number 16 in freeCodeCamp's building a nutritional label. It tells us that lines can help separate important content, and especially when space is limited. We can go ahead and create a divider on here by adding a new class called divider to a div that we need to create. So let's come down here. I'm going to go ahead and do a div. Again, I'm closing it off before I'm adding the class just to help make sure that it is closed off. And then right here, we're going to put a class on here called divider. And this is where I was telling you about in an earlier video. I'm assuming that we might be putting something on here and creating our own border, but just doing the bottom of it, and that would serve as a divider or maybe our own version of a horizontal rule. So let's go ahead and check our code. We're not going to see anything on here, but it just allows us to move on to the next step. So this is where we're going to target our divider that we just got done doing. This is step number 17 in freeCodeCamp's build a nutritional label, and it wants us to utilize that new class that we built, which is divider. And we want to set the border bottom. We want to set it to 1 pixel solid, and that hashtag that it gave us on there, which is the 3 of the 8s, so 888 and then 989. Okay. Now, the other part on here that I want to make sure that you hit up on here is it says the bottom margin needs to be 2 pixels. So we're going to do the top and bottom, rather, need to be 2 pixels. And so the other left and right, it needs to be 0. So we're going to do the following. We're going to use that margin property, and we're going to go ahead and do the 2 pixels on the top and bottom, and then we're going to do 0 on the left and right. Now, I did want to show you, and maybe I can zoom in on here. Let me see if I can zoom in. That line is faint. Obviously, you should be able to see it on yours, but it provides us with a nice underline, a nice separation. And again, we didn't use the horizontal rule to do this. We just created an empty div. And that's things that tips and tricks that you can pick up by going through these exercises on here. are, hey, I can create a div that doesn't have anything in it and style it and make it my own line. Yeah, you can. And so that's what we ended up doing for this one. Let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. This is going to be the end of our first part of our 4-part series, just so we can break up these steps into several smaller chunk videos. So with that being said, our nutrition facts label, it's coming together, right? A lot more steps to go through to get the rest, but so far, so good. All right. So the key takeaways from this video should be, let's make sure that we understand how we're bringing in our fonts, right? And we saw that with Google. We are utilizing margins here, knowing how to take the user story that they're giving us and trying to solve it with one property if we can. And then that last step that we had with the border bottom, that was specifically targeting a single border, and we target it that way that you saw in this video. All right. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like this video and watch the next series going through some of the next steps. Okay. All right. We'll see you in the next video.